Good morning, beautiful people, and thank you once again for joining us on this other edition of The Brief, live on My Media Prime Television, the program where we always get to dig several layers beneath the major headlines as captured by newspapers. On today's edition of the program, the newspapers are focusing on the cooperation or military accord signed between Cameroon and Russia. And the Voice newspaper this morning is telling us that Cameroon has dumped France and embraced Russia as the new armed deal was signed between the minister delegate at the presidency in charge of defense, Joseph Beti Asomo, who represented Cameroon in Russia, and Russia defense boss, as we are told by the Voice newspaper. We shall equally tell you about the Indians All Conference of Peace and Development, which took place at the Mundemba Council Hall. That was on Friday and Saturday. Many newspapers are still zooming on the conference that sons and daughters of Indian division have agreed to champion development as well as peace in their communities. Bomotonguina, Gwladys is here. Let's find out what she gathered for us in the French language newspapers. Bonjour Gwladys.
Bonjour Lasha. Bonjour à vous. Au plaisir de vous retrouver pour cette autre édition de Debrief, votre émission bilingue de revue de presse sur Ma Media Prime Télévision. Alors ce matin, nous allons commencer avec le problème du carburant au Cameroun. Le journal Le Jour qui nous parle, lui, en grand titre, du carburant, l'inquiétude qui monte donc. Le gouvernement rassure sur l'approvisionnement dans les marchés. Les détails sont en page 3 de ce journal Le Jour ce matin. En page 5, le journal nous révèle que le footballeur camerounais Toko Ekambi a été agressé à Lyon par des Algériens. Les détails sont donc en page 5 de ce journal Le Jour publié ce matin. En page 6, le journal nous parle de la population de Ndive qui s'engage donc pour la paix, pour parler donc d'une importante réunion qui s'est tenue le week-end dernier à Mundemba. Nous restons toujours dans le journal Le Jour à sa page 4 qui nous parle des élections au barreau du Cameroun qui se précise donc. Les détails sont donc effectivement en page 4 de ce journal Le Jour. Mesdames, Messieurs, nous poursuivons ce matin avec le journal La Nouvelle Expression qui nous parle de la guerre en Ukraine. Le gouvernement dépoussière donc un vieux projet. En effet, les réflexions devant déboucher à la production de la farine locale ont été relancées depuis que le pays subit de plein fouet les répercussions de la guerre entre la Russie et l'Ukraine, deux des principaux pays exportateurs de blé au monde. Les détails sont donc en page 4 du journal La Nouvelle Expression publiée ce matin. En page 1, le journal nous parle de la crise anglophone au Cameroun. Un député canadien dans les arènes. C'est du moins ce que nous révèle La Nouvelle Expression ce matin. En page 3, le journal nous révèle que le choléra a déjà fait plus de 114 décès dans le pays. En page 9, le journal nous parle de la journée mondiale du paludisme qui s'est célébrée hier, quand le Covid-19 masque donc le paludisme. Mesdames, Messieurs, nous poursuivons ce matin avec le journal Émergence. Le journal Émergence nous parle ce matin de la des pénuries au Cameroun. Le Cameroun interdit donc l'exportation des produits de première nécessité, dont le le ciment, les huiles raffinées, le riz, les céréales produites localement. Les détails sont donc en page 5 du journal Émergence ce matin. En page 7, le journal nous parle de la société de sucre camerounaise Sosucam qui a donc suspendu la production de son usine de Banjok. En page 9, le journal nous parle de protection. Le Cameroun accueille donc près de 350 000 réfugiés centrafricains. Mesdames, Messieurs, nous continuons donc ce matin, ou nous clôturons ce matin avec le journal La Cible qui nous parle ici du président de la fondation du mouvement franquiste, Cédric Penda Moukoko, qui déclare donc qu'il est temps d'exclure les détourneurs de fonds publics du RDPC avant les échéances des élections présidentielles de 2025. Les détails sont donc en page 11 de ce journal La Cible. En page 4 et 5, le journal nous parle de celui qui a été renvoyé par le président de la République, par le président du parti du RDPC, Messanga Nyansi. Le journal demande donc quel est l'avenir de ce politicien au jour d'aujourd'hui. Mesdames, Messieurs, C'est tout pour ces titres en langue française. Place à la découverte des titres en langue anglaise avec toi, Lasha.
Thank you, Bomotonguina. Gladys, let's kickstart with the Voice newspaper this morning. The Voice newspaper, like I earlier mentioned, is also focusing on the Indian All Indian Conference, which took place at the Mundemba Council Hall. That was on Friday and Saturday in Indian Division of the Southwest Region. All Indian Conference signals rebirth of peace, unity, and community development, writes the Voice newspaper. The Voice newspaper on page 3 is also telling us that Nigeria, Cameroon, Niger troops pound Boko Haram hideouts, free over 50 women and children who were under captivity or Boko Haram captivity, in an exclusive interview with the commander of the Joint Task Force, General A.K. Ibrahim, and War Picture Gallery. Only in this edition of the Voice weekend newspaper, the Voice is also digging several layers to tell us that from the air, land, and the Lake Chad waters, regional forces have been striking Boko Haram targets in a deadly operation, Lake Sanity. The most recent surgical strike has killed 10 senior operatives of the terrorist sect and destroyed a cache of weapons and vehicles, as well as bomb-making center. At least 2 soldiers died and about 20 others got injured by landmines laid by the fleeing militants of the terrorist sect Boko Haram. Some 40 hostages, mostly women and children, were also freed during the airstrike or during the operation. And the force commander of the regional military joint task force, General A.K. Ibrahim, spoke in an exclusive interview with BBC's Randy Josa. You can get more details in this edition of the Voice newspaper, talking about the exclusive interview granted Randy Josa, or BBC Randy Josa, only in this edition of the Voice newspaper. The Voice newspaper is also telling us that Cameroon Bia's Dom or Bia regime dumps France, US in a desperate situation. And Cameroon's minister delegate at the presidency in charge of defense, Joseph Beti Asomo, last week signed an accord with Russia defense chief on bilateral military cooperation. At the surface, it looks like one of the uncountable international pacts signed by world nations. However, given the context of a global shaking invasion of Ukraine by Russia and a continuing Anglophone war in Cameroon, it goes without saying that a second reading is imperative. On the one hand, a comparative a cooperation with Russia at a time when NATO, the North Atlantic Trade Organization, is all out against Putin's countries. A friend of France, USA, and other decides to cooperate with Russia is a devastating blow. More details on page 3 of this edition of the Set newspaper, talking about a friend of US and France, which is of course Cameroon, deciding to cooperate with Russia is a devastating blow to those nations. More details on page 3 of this edition of the Set newspaper. And we all know that during a UN meeting, the Republic of Cameroon did not vote for Russia to leave Ukraine or Russia withdrawal from Ukraine, and reason why the minister delegate signed the military accord that was signed recently in Russia. We shall be telling you more on that with our guest who will be joining us from London to talk about some of the clauses or articles of the said military accord signed between Cameroon and Russia. Let's talk about Pope Francis' appeal for peace in Cameroon. We are told that on Divine Mercy Sunday, April 24, 2022, Cameroon bishops led by thousands of Catholic faithful in reconsecrating the conflict-torn regions of the Northwest, Southwest, and the Far North regions to Immaculate Heart of Mary. The overnight weekend pilgrimage to the Mariam Shrine of Maryburg culminated in the consecration of Sunday morning and his Regina Coeli appeal on Sunday. Pope Francis not only appealed for peace in Ukraine, but also through the support behind the national pilgrimage in Cameroon. More details on page 3 of this edition of the Voice newspaper. We leave the The Voice newspaper, we're taking you to the Loon English Daily, the Guardian Post newspaper. The Guardian Post this morning is talking about the Indian meeting, which brought together sons and daughters of Indian division. And still in the Guardian Post newspaper, as anti-Amber sentiments on the rise in the northwest and southwest region, population captures hands 3 separatist fighters to military in Nguti in the southwest region of the country. And the paper goes further to tell us that a fresh wind of change appears to be blowing across communities in the 2 conflict-hit northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, and keen watchers of the deepening armed conflict have observed. And the rising anti-Amber sentiment, pundits who is the kickback of repeated acts of atrocities committed by separatist fighters who have for the past 5 years posing as liberators and imposing hardship on the people they claim to be fighting for. The new development of the population rising against oppressors who have been masquerading as liberators and taking their own destiny into their hands has touched Nguti subdivision in Kupe Mwaninguba division of the southwest region of the country. The senior divisional officer said in an interview that the population captured 3 suspected Ambazonian fighters and handed them over to the military in that part of the country. Let's talk about the opening of a sub-regional conference in Yaoundé. Mina boss Paul Atanganji says President Paul Biya committed to assisting refugees in the country. The territorial administration boss Paul Atanganji said President Paul Biya is committed to assisting the thousands of refugees in the country. And Paul Atanganji restated the head of state's commitment while launching the sub-regional ministerial conference to seek displacement related to the crisis in the Central African Republic. More details in this edition of the 3-day summit, which also has in attendance the Minister of External Relations of the country, Lejeune Mbela. Let's now take you to Municipal Updates newspaper, which is telling us that the nation's oldest mayor has died. The late mayor Alex Abba Bubakar of Mora reportedly died in that part of the country recently. He was the oldest mayor in the country. And the paper is also telling us that Bamuso gets electricity 58 years after creation, and this was done. That was during the conference which took place in Dian in Mundemba Council Hall recently, and it was announced that Bamoso will have electricity 58 years after creation. More details in this edition of Municipal Updates newspaper. We end this morning with Cameroon Echoes. Cameroon Echoes newspaper is also interested in the All Indian Conference, which took place at the Mundemba Council Hall in Indian Division. That was on Friday and Saturday. Population endorses peace, development, as we are told by Echo or Cameroon Echoes newspaper. And they equally want tarring of Kumba Ekondo Titi Road to resume immediately, and imminent visit of Prime Minister Chief Dr. Joseph Diongute to Indian Division announced. More details in this edition of the said newspaper. Let's talk about cholera now. 6 persons and 10-month-old baby contract cholera in Mautu village in the southwest region. Cholera that has been hitting some regions of the country is still ravaging, especially in some prisons in the country. Thank you for watching, televiewers of My Media Prime Television. We are back in the studio to continue with our discussion this morning. And equally joining us this morning is Kuma Onorimbom, who is coming all the way from Limbe. He is the Limbe-based correspondent for My Media Prime Television. Good morning and welcome, Kuma Onori.
Good morning, Lasha. Thank you.
Good morning to Maitre Alex Ndive. You are on the line to UK. Are you there, Maitre Alex? We're having issues connecting with Maitre Alex Ndive. We shall come back to Maitre Alex Ndive. Meanwhile, Gwladys, let's begin with Kuma Onori, who is coming from the southwest region, one of the regions hit hard by cholera. Onori, what is the situation of cholera now? We are told by Cameroon Echo newspaper that 6 people, including a 10-month-old baby, have contracted cholera in that part of the country. What is the situation of cholera in the southwest region? as
Yes,
at
Lasha,
now?
the cholera situation has gradually dying down. The number of infected cases recorded on a daily basis has greatly reduced. But when we start to see a cholera resurfacing in other communities, it is an indication that the preventive measures which the communities are supposed to respect to bar cholera out of their communities are not being adopted. So there is this call, to the population to step up preventive measures which are just mere proper hygiene and sanitation to bar cholera out of the communities. We find communities which are very, very, very unkempt, very, very dirty, poor waste management, poor lack of potable water in those communities, and that is why we find cholera still resurfacing in some of these communities.
So what are the measures that local administrative authorities are taking in that part of the country to ensure that the level of infection is dropped to the minimum?
Recently, there was a vaccination campaign where the communities that were affected by cholera, they were being prioritized, and this vaccination campaign started in these communities. Like in Limbe, those communities that were highly hit by cholera, almost all of them have been vaccinated. I think the case of Maitre, the resurfacing of cholera in Maitre is just I can't want to say it's a spot. It's just one of the cases which is an indication that the campaign should be vulgarized. The campaigns should be increased so that the vaccine, almost everybody is being vaccinated.
Okay.
Vous avez dit qu'on a mis la priorité peut-être sur les zones qui étaient vraiment touchées. C'est dans ces zones-là où on a fait les vaccins aux populations. Donc ça voudrait dire que les autres régions qui n'avaient pas de victimes ou bien de personnes malades atteintes de choléra n'ont pas reçu de vaccin préventif.
Yes, the truth is that the cholera vaccine is limited. So for the regional delegation of public health and the various districts decided to prioritize these communities that were highly hit by the cholera outbreak.
Donc vous essayez de nous faire comprendre qu'il n'y a pas eu assez ou il n'y en a pas assez de vaccins contre le choléra dans cette partie du pays-là.
Many people have not yet been vaccinated.
Okay.
And I think that the campaign should be step up.
The vaccine you are talking about, don't you think that hygienic measures should be reinforced rather than focusing on this vaccine? Because cholera is all about the lifestyle, how people are living, the kind of water that they are drinking. Don't you think that the focus should be on the sources of potable water and the kind of lifestyle that people are living in those communities that are hit with cholera?
You are very correct, Lasha. Hygiene and sanitation is a social vaccine. That should be the first step to fight against cholera. Because if you get into our markets and you get into the community, refuge in the market, and people,
no toilets,
a lack of toilet facilities, go to the creeks, the lack of toilet facilities in the creeks, people prefer, like you just said, people prefer to be defecating on the streams, and while others are washing their dresses down.
People are still doing it till now?
It is normal. For some people, it's a tradition. For the people in the riverine communities, it is like a tradition for them to defecate by the sea. Whether you build toilets for them, they will prefer to go and defecate by the sea.
How much education do these people need to be able to understand that they are putting themselves or exposing themselves to, public health risk?
I think apart from education, there should be reinforcement of law. So much so that people who violate to respect proper hygienic measures should be called to order, they should pay for it because they are causing an environmental and also a health hazard.
En d'autres termes, il faudrait qu'on mette peut-être des agents de sécurité au niveau de ces rivières, là où les gens ont l'habitude d'aller se laver ou bien faire les selles.
You're very correct.
Okay.
For instance, you have off-license business premises without toilets. And how do you expect users...
In a city like Limbe, how is that possible?
It is...
Et puis Limbe a été connu pour l'une des villes les plus propres du Cameroun.
Yes, Limbe was classified as the cleanest city in the year 2021. It doesn't mean that there are not cases of exceptions.
Okay.
There are cases of exceptions. Okay. And most of these issues of lack of toilet, sometimes it happened in connivance with local administrative authorities who are expected to reinforce hygiene and sanitation.
Okay, Maitre Alex, I have indication that you are back. I don't know if you are listening to me. Okay. Thank you very much. We are talking about this headline in the Voice newspaper of Randy Josa, and the Voice newspaper this morning is telling us that Cameroon-Russia arms deal beer dumps France, US in desperate situation. What do you have to say? We talked about this military cooperation yesterday, and today the newspapers are still coming back. This time around, they are... Yes.
I will tell you, the headline is misleading.
The headline is... No, Maitre.
You have to lie.
No.
It's important when people come in the public, they mislead people.
Yes.
They should do their research. And France is responsible for our treasury and interest rate. So they are still responsible. Nobody have done any person. We should stop being dishonest in public places.
Yes, I was saying that when we talk about dumping, don't you think that Cameroon, with the support, probably the support of Russia, things may change? Some of those accords will not be renewed again?
Well, if I should tell you, what I want to say is that Cameroon does not produce arms. So a country like Cameroon have military cooperation, just like Britain, America, they have cooperation with a military agreement with Saudi Arabia and other countries. It is not strange, but I should make it clear, France is still the boss. It's very important. They are the one running Cameroon. I can list the things, I can give you example. We should stop this thing thinking that Russia is coming to do all whatnot. Yes, Cameroon is signing a cooperation or military accord with France, but it's very dangerous at this time when most Western countries, they are against France. I said this before. The former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, was removed because he went to visit Putin. So it's dangerous. It's not really diplomatically positive for the government of Cameroon to be doing this thing at this time.
But Putin is the most powerful man on earth now. Do you argue? Yes.
When we don't rely, if you have a home, you don't rely on your people to protect you, and you want foreigners to protect you, it is dangerous. Putin hasn't got a lot of interest in Cameroon. He has got a lot of interest for decades in Syria. Tomorrow, if there is something in Cameroon, you go and sign an accord. You think Putin will come and help you? He won't do that. He has less interest in Cameroon.
But when you look at the friends of Putin, don't you think that Cameroon, bringing Putin closer is an advantage?
Do you know something? Former president of Chad, President Ndive, he had cooperation agreement with the Arabs, countries, other people. What happened to him? His son is the president there. These people, they look at their advantage. The way their advantage is Cameroon worthy for Russia to go and spend millions like in Syria. I don't think they will do anything because they know among themselves, they know the face of influence. They know Cameroon. Even Britain knows that Cameroon belongs to France. They know that, all of them. Russia knows that Cameroon belongs to France. Yes, they can do agreement with France, but there are limitations.
Ok, Maître, vous avez cité deux articles qui montrent que le Cameroun est pratiquement sous l'emprise de la France, peu importe ce qui est en train d'être vu ou ce qui est en train d'être signé. Mais qu'est-ce qui doit être fait pour que le Cameroun, au jour d'aujourd'hui, sorte peut-être de ces accords-là avec la France?
Il faut répéter votre question encore.
Maître.
Yes, she's saying that you cited 2 articles of the cooperation ties between France and Cameroon. She's asking what should be done today to ensure that Cameroon is free from what you term bondage.
The problem is most of the people running French African countries, as some people will call it, I will say in quotes, they are puppets. I'm not talking only about Cameroon, it's a fact. You go to Togo, Eyadema, the sun took over. Gabon, the sun took over. That's how these countries are being run. If you want to change these things, it's up to us, the people. When I mean the people, it includes you, Gwladys, myself. If we keep on thinking that Bia is the problem of Cameroon alone, Bia is the problem only to a certain extent. It is the people who have to stand and say enough is enough. We want our country back. That's got nothing to do with Mr. Bia. If Mr. Bia is not there tomorrow, they will put somebody there. That's the truth. So we should know that it is the people. And ask me how it's up to us. I don't know precisely how we'll do it, but it's up to the people of the Cameroon. It's not up to Bia. If today Mr. Bia wants to turn his back against France, they will remove him and put somebody else. There are so many people who want his place. So it's a difficult situation. I cannot pretend, but it's up to us, the people. We have
and now, bringing in Russia, don't you think there is an added
movement?
Bringing in Russia, don't you think it is an added advantage and may stop that kind of, violation of sovereignty that you're talking about?
At the end of the day, most of these countries that were created, including Cameroon, Nigeria, all these countries were created by the United Nations. So sometimes they make us to believe that we have sovereignty when we don't. A country like Ukraine, I'll give you an example. In 1994, they told them, the NATO, that they were going to protect them in case there was any Russian aggression. Today, they are attacking them. They asked them to give away their weapons of mass destruction in 1994. The Ukraine, they did that. Today, they have been attacked. What is happening? Nothing is happening. So the geopolitics about some few people who colonize us, who enslave us, who promoted apartheid, they are the ones still controlling the world. But however, with the war in Ukraine, I know things are going to change. And it will be better for the people of Africa. That is my opinion. That is my view. And I hope it comes.
How are they going to do it? Gaddafi tried and failed. How are they going to do it? You talk about coming together.
People, if you ask me, I believe in this policy of small catching monkey. We need the right people at the right places. If you ask me how we did in Cameroon before we fought for multipartyism, I will tell you that it's about the people. If you ask me about Boya University, it's about the people. If you ask me about the so-called special statute, it's about the people. If the people, they believe that we want change, and they stand side by side, shoulder to shoulder, they change.
Fighters, those who were masquerading as liberators, and they are now being seen as oppressors.
Yes, you see, the population is actually fed up. It's fed up of all the manipulations that has resulted as a result of the crisis. Before, the population, not that people really loved the crisis at the beginning, but like Barrister is saying, it's always good to give a try to someone. The population started to buy the idea of the separatists. They tried to buy the idea, but after some time, they realized that those people, they have their own agenda, which was their personal interest. So gradually, now they are vomiting those people out, because they have realized that most of them are thieves. Most of them,
they kidnap for ransom. Your relative dies. We are talking from testimonies. People have testified. Your
All
relative
sorts of
dies. You
atrocities.
pay money to bury your relative.
Yes.
You said something. They arrest or they kidnap your family members, or they arrest in court and they demand for ransom. So these are the things that have built up these anti-sentiments, as we are reading in the Guardian Post newspaper.
Yes, the population has no option rather than to vomit them.
So the question now is, how safe are these populations in communities that are rising up? Are you sure that they will be free? The Ambazonian fighters will not come after them?
The truth is, the step taken by the population is a bold step. The population just need to continue to be vigilant, to be watchful, and to be stronger than ever. The vigilante groups need to be empowered. They need to...
Est-ce qu'à ce niveau-là, ils n'ont pas besoin peut-être de l'aide de l'armée? Parce qu'on parle ici d'un groupe armé, et les séparatistes, ils sont armés, et la population, elle n'est pas armée du tout.
I'm talking about vigilance.
Okay.
And when you are vigilant, you also communicate.
Okay.
You communicate to the powers that be, and these people are going to be fished out. When the incident that happened, it's not just the population who outsmarted those people. You realize
but
that after...
The question I'm asking, and we've seen in other communities, the aftermath of the population handing over Ambazonian fighters or denouncing some of the excesses of these people.
So when we talk about anti-Amba sentiment, I would change that word and say, I would say anti-criminal sentiment. I would use Amba.
Anti what?
We are making a...
Sorry, Maitre, what did you say?
Anti... Amba who wants the problem to be solved in Cameroon.
Anti-criminals? Maitre, I didn't hear you. You said anti-criminals?
Sentiment.
Criminal sentiment.
Anti-criminals. That's how we put it, not Amba. Because I am a champion for Anglophone causes. I'm not necessarily Amba. So we make it...
Who is an Amba? Who is an Amba, Maitre?
Amba who are fighting for Anglophone problem. I'm telling you that Francophones are fighting for Anglophone problem. CPTM militants are fighting for Anglophone movement and other people. So the point is, there is a danger. I heard what you said about the Jew praising the population. If you ask the population to start fighting people who are armed or paramilitary, that is what you're calling for, what jungle justice. And what else again? A war crime to involve civilians in a civil war in quotes. And again, the only excuse that civilians can attack these Amba fighters is for self-defense. And what is self-defense? Self-defense comes with proportionality. These guys are using what? Guns. So you are asking the population to start using guns too. Because you cannot fight people who are having military weapons without you having weapons. So it's the government ready to see civilians carrying guns. Because when ATO comes and encourages the civilian to arrest these people, so you're telling them to defend themselves, which means they have to start carrying guns. Is that what the government wants? And again, when you come to fighting criminals, it's the function and duties of a government that is receiving taxpayers.
But the government cannot. But the government cannot operate. The government cannot operate alone. The government needs information from the local population.
No, listen, Mr. Lasha, let me tell you the truth. The population doesn't need to get involved. You don't owe a government a right. In any civilized democracy, when there are armed people in the street, the police, they will inform you, don't go out there. They are dangerous because it is their job. But when you have a do-nothing government, it sends the population to go and do their job. What do they do with taxpayers' money? It goes into the pocket of who? Aba, Ondongdong, Bebengo, Ezwa, Ezre Engo. Use that money to protect our people and stop sending people to risk their life.
Ok, Ok, maître, il y a le président du mouvement franquiste qui a un peu parlé, comme vous venez de le dire, qu'il est grand temps d'enlever peut-être du RDPC les détourneurs de fonds.
Do you know something? Is it called Cedric Penda Mokoko?
Oui, oui.
Sorry to say that I don't hate him, but it makes me, I feel like throwing up. Mr. Frambia have never talked about standing for election. Somebody will come, you don't know Frambia, you don't know his life, and you form something called Frankist. That's the problem we have in Cameroon. And again, he is saying that people who have been stealing money from taxpayers, that they should ban them from the party, something like that. Let me tell you something. I will quote this. Mr. Bia once said, you say people are corrupt in Cameroon. If you don't give them money, they will not be corrupt. That's a quote from Mr. Paul Bia. So this CPTM ruling party, they have no desire from stopping people from stealing taxpayers' money. We as opposition, we sit as alternative. We have a clean record. We think Cameroon can only change by bringing people who have a clean EB. All this Frankist movement or whatsoever, you can be recycling the same thing and expecting different results. Albert Einstein says it's called insanity. Because Mr. Frambia is part of what is happening in Cameroon. And I know as a Cameroonian, he's entitled to say he wants to be president of Cameroon. If he wants to say it, he should meet the people and explain. And he should tell me, because I will not say certain things. We know what happened in France in a plane about drop or whatsoever. We know all those things. What happened, I won't go into detail. Those who know what happened with the plane in France, Frambia and Mendoza's son, is that the type of people who want them to lead Cameroon? The answer is no.
Okay, Maitre. Kuma Honori, let's talk about All-Indian Conference, which held over the weekend in Mundemba, in the southwest region, and population endorses peace and development. How did you see this move that was championed by sons and daughters of Indian Division in bringing back peace to their community, a community that has been plagued by conflict? So many individuals have been killed in separate attacks, and the region needs peace, and the region is the region of origin of the Prime Minister.
Yes, Lasha, I think Indian Division is one of the divisions in the southwest region that has been highly touched by this crisis. For close to 6 years now, everything in Indian Division seems to be grounded. If you remember the Kondotiti massacre, the recent massacre of students, the recent killing of the divisional officer, the divisional delegates that got missing until now, nobody.
One is dead and the others have disappeared.
And the Pamol Lobe activities in Pamol, they are being grounded. Nothing is happening in the Lobe until the head office they have moved to Douala, and many other issues. The Kumba Mundemba Road that was supposed to have started to have been ongoing by now is retarded. All these are developmental issues that.
But do you think that Indian Division can stand the test of this crisis by carving out itself to want to, be a peaceful division, and meanwhile other parts of the country are still having pockets of resistances? Is that possible? Why not tackle the root cause of the problem?
I think the initiative for them to come together was to tackle the root causes of this problem.
In their community or in the northwest and southwest?
Starting from their community. I think other divisions should emulate from what the Indian people did. Because as people, as indigenes of Indian, of their various subdivisions, their various villages, they came together to identify the root causes of that has made this problem to escalate.
The people who carried the guns into the bushes, they don't know. Because
it was also a forum for them to identify their children who are in the bushes. It was also a forum for them to identify and to negotiate and to start talking to them, to see how they can drop down their guns and see how they can empower them. They can empower them so that the peace and normalcy should return to Indian division for development to follow. Because development cannot follow when there is this war.
So you are calling on elites of other divisions to follow, to emulate the example?
I think so.
Okay. On a eu des témoignages de certaines personnes qui ont reçu des menaces de la part des séparatistes, parfois par téléphone, qui leur ont fait comprendre qu'en fait, ils ne font plus partie de ces villages, ils font juste partie de ce groupe-là de séparatistes.
Daughters have decided...
What I would like to say is that the government of Cameroon should not be praying to the gallery. They should allow all Anglophones, people of Northwest and Southwest, to meet and debate among themselves and come out with a proposal and hand it to the government like the tripartite. We don't need to divide and rule that you hear all Indian conference, all Mayemen conference, all Fakov conference. Allow the Anglophones to come and meet.
But the Anglophones don't want to meet. The Anglophones don't want to meet. They don't want to meet. The Anglophones don't want to come together. We've seen with the Toronto meeting. We've seen with the Toronto meeting. We've seen with the All Anglophone General Conference.
To call all of them to make a day. Invite everyone to come. Those who want to come should come.
But the
outside Cameroon or inside Cameroon, that's the solution.
Okay, Maitre, thank you so much for joining me this morning to talk on some of the burning issues that the newspapers carried in Cameroon. Thank you to Kuma Onorimbom for coming, and hopefully we'll be with you some other time. Thank you to televiewers of My Media Prime Television for taking our time to watch this other edition of the program, which was produced by Christain, Tebong. We were Bomotonguina, Gwladys, and myself, Lasha. Tomorrow is another day. Bye-bye.